Hey guys, so let's get straight into this. Like I mentioned in my intro, I wanted to put together a track fundamentally based around a sample and build everything around that. So I came across this sample here, which is out of a Sample Magic pack, and they very kindly licensed it to Sonic Academy for this course. It's fundamentally just a piano loop, really, judging by the name, loosely based on the sounds Reva Starr was making a few years ago. And I thought it'd be a good starting point to build from. So I wanted to show you my process involved in that. Firstly, I think let's get into the drums, because that's generally my starting point for a track. It's putting together the groove all around this sample. So we'll load the sample in. And hit L to just loop that out. I'm going to start building the track and the groove around that, essentially. So for my drums, just going to mute the sample for a second whilst I start putting together the groove. As you can see, I've laid out 8 kicks there, all quite standard stuff. Now, if I select all of those, making sure, of course, that the last kick goes all the way to the end of that bar there. If it falls short, this won't work. But yeah, I'll select all of those and then Command J for join. Hit create, and that will just give me a nice section that's all fixed together. It just makes it easier for laying it out. As I said, you have to make sure that it is running all the way to the end of the bar there. Otherwise, this isn't going to loop perfectly. So that's really important. If it doesn't, and you want to get around that, a little trick is, let me just undo all that, and I'll show you. So Command Z to undo it. If you put an extra sample at the end. So as I said, if these samples all fall short and that doesn't go all the way to the end of the bar, if you put an extra sample at the end past the point you want, and select them all again. Command and J for join. Hit create. Then that'll give you, obviously, that extra bit. Just chop that off. And zoom in now. Obviously, just make sure that it hasn't caught any of that other sample at the end. So you're not going to get a click or anything. But that is a simple way of, just getting a perfect loop. So I can now hit L. And again, as you can see, L just loops it all the way along. So, right, we've got a kick. A little hat. I'm just going to build a basic groove template here, really, and then we'll kind of roll the track out around that. So your standard kick with an offbeat hat. Right, so as you can see, that's kind of your basics, really. Add in the sample. So even with those really fundamental basics that you've got there, you've already got, I guess, the foundations of the track, and arguably, it kind of sounds all right already. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning, actually. So this is my standard sort of template and starting point for any track. Obviously, the BPM can vary, but generally, I'll always load up a an empty project, I'll have my sidechain channel, which is a kick drum. If I hit play, you can hear there's no sound coming through. So I've got the output of that set to no output. By default, it's on stereo output, but I always just change that to no output, make sure the level's at 0 on that, and then I use that to trigger any compressors where I want sidechaining to be in place. I'm sure many of you are aware of sidechaining and probably don't need me to go on too much about it, but it's a really useful way of creating space in bits like the bassline and various sort of lead parts within the track if you want to allow other parts to punch through. So yeah, I always by default have that there ready to go from the start. Level wise, we're running everything really low, as you can see, arguably too low. I'm going to, as a sort of starting point, I generally have my kicks about -20. And the reason for all this is on my master channel, I mix and master as I go. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure, but it's always worked okay for me. On my master channel, I'll always have a gain boost in everything by 12, which allows me to mix everything really low, and then this kind of compensates for that volume change and boosts it back up again. And then that runs into my own setting on T-Racks, which, yeah, kind of compromises with EQ, then into a compressor, into a limiter, and then a clipper just to keep it all under control at the end. And on top of all of that, first and foremost, I have just a basic channel EQ on my master setting. And the only real reason for this in there, it doesn't actually add or change any dynamics on the master itself, but I just use that almost as an automation tool. So if I want to filter out sections in the break and certain areas of the track, I can automate it on that and it will do it across the whole track. I'll show you on parts of this later on, certain sections, but yeah, as a rule, I have that on my master channel just for convenience more than anything. You could arguably put it on a bus or in each individual channel if you wanted more independent control over everything, but often I like to filter out especially the low end on the majority of the record, just as breakdowns sort of build up, just to take all that weight out of it so that when it all kicks back in, it has more impact. But again, we'll touch on that a little bit later and I'll show you it in practice, but just explaining why it's there on my channel strip. So that's my go-to master channel strip, really quite basic, but it works for me. And obviously if I'm doing a track for a label and they want the pre-master to master it themselves, I can just bypass all of these and send them the pre-master nice and easily, and then they can send that off to mastering themselves. But yeah, it's kind of a simple go-to for me, a bit of a tried and tested setup that works nicely for my music, and I've not really needed to change it much over the years. So back to the groove. As I said, we've got the kick and the off-hat. Really nice and simple groove there. Let's add some obvious stuff like the clap. As you can see, all these samples are kind of pre-made and pre-ready to go. That's because these are the original samples I actually used for this track. So for convenience, I've just put them all in one folder. But these are a lot of my own go-to sounds that I've collated over the years, just various kicks and hits and hats and claps and snares, various noises that I've found work for my tracks. And I've kind of spent a lot of time collating them and put them into different folder structures just so I've got a go-to set of sounds for making tracks quickly. So well worth putting the time in there, guys, and yeah, a bit of preparation goes a long way really, because it just speeds up your workflow. So for the instance of showing you how I made this track, yeah, I've collated these prior to this recording just to speed up the workflow, and I guess a little less boring for you watching me flick through folders, so I can just grab them and drag them straight in. So yeah, this is the clap. As you can see, not paying attention there, I've put too many in, so let's just thin those out. Right, so on that clap, let's just check there's no nasty bottom end frequencies there coming through that are going to start competing with the kick drum. But as you can see, EQ's already rolled off on that sample, so it already sounds fine. Right. So I'm a big fan of arguably too many hats and shakers in my tracks. The reason for this is they give it a lot of energy and they really kind of increase the pace. So the thought process behind this is if I start filling up some of the space, it really drives the momentum of the record, which you'll see now. So this is this hat itself is kind of like a little hit more than anything, with a little bit of a, as you can see, I think it's out of a loop originally, and it's just a hit with a little hat on as well. If you listen to it solo, it's almost like a bit of a kick that's been EQ'd with a little hat that sort of springs off the tail. So I'm going to add that on top of the groove here again. So it's very subtle, but it adds a little bit of movement. Again, going to add some more hats and shakers. And now for me, it's about placement. So I'm going to try and find, like I said, a little bit of space in the groove. As you can see, there's nothing really there other than the tail of that hat. So this is hopefully going to add a bit more momentum to the record. Very subtle. And another one again. So if I start soloing some of these, you'll hopefully hear the momentum there. So another clap, I'm going to layer that over top of the clap we've already got in there. I'm going to bring the level back up on that one as well, just so it punches through a bit more. And as I said, I kind of mix as I go really, so I'm just going to give these a little run through and adjust some of the levels. And again, I'm going to add some more layers now. You might wonder why, but hopefully that'll become apparent as we start to sketch out the arrangement. I just like to sort of keep building on things and really adding that energy as the track builds and progresses along. So my way of doing this is by layering lots of things, hopefully not too much stuff fighting for space, but we can kind of gauge that as we load the tracks in. I'm a big believer of trying to get the right sounds, and often it might be a case of searching for the right clap or the right kick or the right hat, so that complements the ones that are already there, rather than forcing sounds to work together or having to process them too much because they're not right. I'd rather spend the time getting the right sound and minimal processing. So I'm going to add a third clap in here. So hopefully you can kind of hear the difference between those and what they're adding. One's a little more toppy, one's a little more, I guess, mid-range, and then that one's just got a bit more character to it. So collectively I kind of feel like they all add a little bit in their own right. I'm going to put another hit on the kick. As you can hear, there's a very slight delay on that sample, and the reason for that is it adds a little bit of skip to the actual groove of the track. So when I play them all together, hopefully you can hear that. Right, let's play it all with the sample now so you can get an idea of the groove. And that is the basis of the track there. I've got some extra hats and ride cymbals that I will use to pick sections up further on the arrangement. But first and foremost, this is my basic groove of the record and the core idea that often I will start with, just having a loop running like this and building and building and building until I kind of feel like I've got the bones of the record there. And then it's just a case of thinking about if I wanted to add a vocal or any other elements, which in this case I didn't. And I guess where I want to go with that track, I start thinking about the arrangement what elements I'm going to introduce and when. So we'll talk about that in the next section.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content, and if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.